Yo, what is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. How was everybody's week last week? Had a little bit of time off, but we're back, and then we're on a plane, Anthony and I, tomorrow to Vegas. We'll be at MJ Biz all week for the biggest industry conference, so we'll get some feedback for you back here Friday at 11 a.m. to give you all the information, news. The biggest names in cannabis are touching down in Sin City this week. So, again, we'll have all that feedback on Friday. For now, we're going to talk about this news at Tilray last week, what this means for you, the investor, moving forward. Yes, we talk about this dollar threshold on the NASDAQ, but I think there's more to it involving institutions. We'll get AV's take on that. Plus, Michael Bronstein is going to come in and talk about this December 12th meeting that's taking place regarding the Supreme Court and federal prohibition in cannabis. So how should we read into this? I think that's an interesting take because we're seeing slowly but surely some moving parts in all this. And I don't want to read too much into this, but again, this won't finalize anything. It's just whether or not this hearing will take place and if they will take on this case. So lots of moving parts here on a Monday. So let's welcome in AV. Good to see you and happy belated Thanksgiving. How was your time off?
It's great.
Was it?
Nice,
cash
easy
money
vacation with the family. Bringing your baby on vacation. You're on her time, not our time.
Was she up early?
Yeah, she actually decided to wake up at 6 a.m. sharp every morning, which is outside of her normal routine.
You're an early riser, though. That's pretty normal for you, is it not?
Yeah, not on vacation.
Not on vacation. I get it.
Not on vacation. I mean, we pitched this tent so she sleeps in like a blackout tent in the hotel room. And yeah, she just kept waking up at 6. She was good on the plane, which was good.
Cool. Well, looks like it was fun. I took my little one to some stuff in Detroit on Friday. Watched the Red Wings. What a day weekend it was for the Detroit sports scene. The Red Wings lost on Wednesday night. Lions lost Thursday. Red Wings lost again on Friday. And Michigan lost on Saturday. So
you know who really looks really good is the Bears.
Don't even get me started. It's the worst 9-3 football team like I've ever seen.
They're
so lucky.
I don't know about that.
I don't know what's up with the Eagles. But how about them Cowboys? But we'll get into sports later.
I told you that the Cowboys could easily win the Super Bowl, and we'll get off sports 6 weeks ago when you told me I was fucking crazy.
Well, they made some pretty notable trades at the deadline, which should revamp that defense. But
yeah,
lots going on while we were off, including we begin with Tilray. They just executed a 1-for-10 reverse split. And on paper, it's about NASDAQ compliance, but I think there's a deeper institutional strategy at play here. So when you saw this news that goes from 1.16 billion shares to 116 million. So that looks a lot more viable, I would think, with institutions. But I heard the chatter, read a few newsletters this morning, and yes, it was all about that dollar threshold, which, yes, there is some truth to that, but I think there's something more here.
I don't think it had anything to do with regulatory compliance.
I don't
know. To be honest, I think that's kind of an elementary take. If you're looking at just the capital markets picture overall. I mean, Irwin just compressed it from 1.1 billion, like you said, down to 116 million. This is going to bring the share price up. Granted, share prices usually float down post these splits. So, I mean, I think there might be some short-term pain in it, but I think this is signaling a shift. And I mean, I think it's bullish. I think that he thinks that reform is on the horizon.
I do too.
I think that it needed to happen. I mean, a stock's going to respond a lot better to 116 million share float versus close to 1.2 billion. Some investors are pissed, rightly so. But at the same time, like it is what it is. I mean, this is a function of capital markets. This kind of stuff is going to happen. The intrinsic value of your position doesn't change.
Yep.
At all. And I think it's a net positive.
Yeah. Well, you wonder how this changes how ETFs and mutual funds will view this because they avoid obviously high float names. But like you said, this doesn't change fundamentally, but it was something that had to be done. And stock did not perform well after the announcement, so it wasn't really received all that well.
They usually don't at all.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to respond good. After the split takes place, you'll probably see it drop some more.
Yeah.
But if we do get an announcement and if all of the rumors are true and everybody's talking about Q1 and this does happen, the damn thing is going to boom. Tilray will be a liquidity machine like it usually is with less shares. And I think it will boom on any sort of announcement.
A lot hinges on reform, but I saw one of the lead congressmen, guy that we met actually 2 weeks ago in Washington, that's going to be coming on our live stream. Not until February is what he told us. But guy, oh God,
I don't remember his name. It was like Russian Splager. I'll butcher his name.
Russian
Speller.
Lauder.
Russian Speller or something.
Russian Lauder. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's cautiously optimistic. I saw the story today that Marijuana Moment Tom basically reported, but he's not just a fringe name. He's got some basically weight. And I thought it was interesting that he's saying this, but you talk about, and we'll get into this with Michael, about this Supreme Court hearing that's going to be taking place on December 12th. Some moving parts here, but to your point, if there is reform, I wouldn't get caught up in this day-to-day stuff. And you have to in some capacity with Tilray because, this stock has been hit hard. But to your point, you might want to view this as being bullish if you're looking at this long term.
By the way, there was a great article on Marijuana Herald comparing and contrasting the 3 amicus briefs that have been filed by 3 different organizations and submitted to the Supreme Court. I would definitely recommend reading that article. Anthony gave some pretty good insight on how they're congruent, how they differ, why they're doing all those arguments, and how they could impact the Supreme Court potentially taking the case and or overturning. I forget it was Reich versus something, but it was a great article that he put out this morning.
You see what you're doing here? Shad is right. 01/01/26, Schedule 3. Great.
You just gave it oxygen by mentioning it. I was actually going to let it die. So, Shad Dale's guarantee. January 1st, 2026, rescheduling will happen. If you're gonna open the door, I'm gonna walk right through it.
I don't endorse that messaging whatsoever, but I'm cautiously optimistic, as the congressman said, for 2026. And I'm not putting any times and dates on it other than it's 2026. Between now and the midterms, I do believe it's going to happen. People call me crazy, but that's all I'm saying.
It seems that everybody's thinking that. Thinking that, and we'll see. I know Bruce Lavelle got appointed to the what was it, the director of public-private partnerships for the USDA.
Yeah.
Today, people seem to think that was bullish.
We're grasping on anything right now, aren't we?
The USDA answers directly to the DEA,
yes.
Especially on drug policy. So we shall see. He's been silent about rescheduling for the last couple of months after becoming quite bullish in his messaging a couple months back. So we'll see what happens. But Trent was actually there today at his inauguration. Yeah.
Oh,
inauguration. Fine. No, not inauguration. Appointment.
Thank you, David Benz. Gonzalez versus Reich. Yes, you are correct. Yeah, that's encouraging. What else do I want to talk about? Tilray, they also mentioned cost savings up to $1 million annually from reduced shareholder meeting expenses. That's very small. What else do we see here? Reverse splits. Well, they don't. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
No, go ahead. I don't have anything else to say about Tilray.
All right. Bruce Lavelle. Yes, we DM'd him actually 15 minutes ago. We actually went back and forth with him probably 3-4 months ago, and he was going to come on, and then suddenly it just went quiet.
I have his phone number if anybody wants to text him.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, let's not go there.
Not gonna do that.
All right.
There was also news out of Texas today.
Yeah, you want to get into that?
Yeah, the doctors can now petition to expand the underlying conditions that are applicable to medical marijuana in the state of Texas.
Okay.
In the Teacup program. Brian Dabrowski, if you're watching this, I basically saw your anti-state-run cannabis manifesto that I thought was just insane. That someone took the time and detail to actually write that nonsense. There's a lot wrong with the document too. Your Canadian-owned MSOs is just completely wrong. But it's
I missed it. Do you want to go into it, or what was said?
I scanned the document, and then it was reading just superfluous bullshit, to say the least.
Okay.
Like Brian, I mean, I like a lot of the takes that he has and his vigor for the plant, but this don't mess with Texas, anti-MSO bullshit I mean, it's just like someone had way too much time on their hands to create that. I don't think it's going to have any sort of reverberating effect.
Okay. Let's move to California.
Oh, look, there's Brian.
Oh, here we go. Love you, brother. I wish it was mine. I would have went in a little different direction.
Yeah, I read it. And obviously I appreciate you joining in the conversation. I just think that there needs to be more a unifying message versus kind of talking about how these Canadian-owned companies that are saddled with debt somehow don't have patients first mandates in mind.
Yeah.
You could make an argument against some MSOs, like you could. And certain things that they've done that aren't in the best interest of patients and or against the accessibility of cannabinoids to people nationwide. But I mean, I think creating a concise and cogent argument versus something that just looked like somebody was just slapping shit on paper was much less impactful.
Yeah. Well, I did a video actually last week, got a lot of great numbers on it. It was regarding just the hemp industry and how the state of Texas is moving with their own set of rules, laws, that sort of thing. So if you're going to get a chance, make sure you get to check that out. Yeah.
It'd be great. They need it.
Yeah. Appreciate Texas for what they do to a certain point, right? Let's move to California. Poster child for potential and dysfunction, from tax hikes to illicit market dependence. There is a new sheriff/regulator that is going to be appointed, and this was going to be appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom. Am I getting this correctly? Is it Clint Kellum is the new director of the Department of Cannabis Control? Okay. Looking at his background, he's got a career in finance and policy with senior roles at California's Department of Finance and Infrastructure Bank. He served as the chief deputy director at the Department of Cannabis Control. Was appointed by Newsom like I said, in late November. He replaces Nicole Elliott after criticism of DCC's performance, and that's probably putting it mildly. So we look at this, the state, was 15% excise tax, 19% in July. They rolled it back to 15%. So even with that relief, there's still nearly 11,000 cannabis licenses that remain inactive. So that tells us it's not just a tax rate issue, it's a structural issue.
No,
do you think this is look, the trust factor in California has been massively eroded. What is he going to do here to fix this? Because he has got a lot on his plate.
So Newsom quietly slipped this in on Thanksgiving. A lot of people thought, and Hirsch Jane actually wrote a very good op-ed on Marijuana Moment that was published today, which I would also recommend people reading that, as it was very cogent and to the point. But this is Newsom's appointee to the DCC that just lost their job was a failure to the state of California. There was a testing scandal that actually allowed pesticide contaminated product onto the shelves in California, which completely just erodes the trust of a safe and tested market, and just completely erodes the legitimacy of legal cannabis. There's been just crony capitalism on licensing. There's been this onerous tax flip-flopping. This new appointee is another Newsom appointee. It's not really too clear as per what they're going to do or what their mandates are going to be. But you can say that just like we saw in New York with the OCM just cleaning house and changing over staff, California maybe is time to enact change.
Think about if they got that right, the effect it would have on the cannabis industry across the country. When you look at the biggest market, in the cannabis space, biggest market really in the world. But if they were to somehow, some way get this right, and what kind of an effect it would have across the entire country, it would be massive.
Yeah. California needs help. California needs help in a bad way.
Yeah.
As far as their industry goes, it's not a industry that is helpful to its participants.
Yeah.
If anything, it's the people that want to be in the legal market are swimming upstream with no paddle against the current.
Yeah.
The way the California market is kind of shaped up.
Yeah. So if you're looking at, or if you're keeping score and you want to look at metrics and what should investors want to know if this shift is indeed real, you got to look at consistency of enforcement actions, reduction in inactive licenses. As I said, there is a ton right now. Market share data is obviously another one when you're comparing legal sales to illicit market sales, and then the regulatory transparency. You got to have clear reporting for the DCC on enforcement outcomes and compliance rates. But he's got a lot on his plate right now. And I just hope it obviously is something that they can get turned around, because no better example, like you just hinted earlier about New York and what they're doing. It's good to see. Yeah. And hopefully that indeed happens west of the U.S. in the state of California. So here we go.
Yep.
All right. One last thing I wanted to bring up too. How about High Tide opening up a retail dispensary location in Berlin? They announced that this morning. So got to hand it to Raj. He's backing up everything he's saying, and he's built this massive footprint in Canada. Now we're heading to Berlin, and I know him, Omar Khan, who said
back that up just a little bit. It's not a dispensary. It's a High Tide branded store that sells products, but not cannabis products.
So it's a Canna Cabana store.
It's a Canna Cabana. It's a Canna Cabana branded store, but it is not a dispensary selling THC products.
First step in the right direction, though. This is big, though, to have that brand. As I said, you know, you see people exporting and getting flower, obviously, into European countries, but very impressive to see a storefront North American brand. That's something we have not seen in this industry yet. So do you think this is a sign of things to come? Because it sure as heck appears, because I don't think he's just going to look at branding one store. This could be a rinse and repeat in due time if Germany starts to really open up its opportunities for some of these North American players. I wonder how a lot of these Germans will interpret this too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously we know that the German market, they can only sell through pharmacies. Right now, everybody that we've had on from across the pond has had quite a stiff stance on the potential for adult use and recreational in Germany. I think it's great from a branding perspective. He's planting the flag early in that country, and I mean, it's my hat's off to him. But I think it's going to be a long time coming before they have dispensaries, especially from an adult use perspective, with CanG getting rolled out to a greater extent, especially under the current government.
Good point. We had somebody from Germany just actually make a comment. Who was that? Hey guys, who somebody is writing. If there's anything you want to shed some light on that maybe we don't know about Germany, feel free to comment. I forget where that was. Somebody writes, what are they going to be selling? Merchandise and t-shirts? I'll find out more. We'll be speaking with Raj actually next week. He's coming on to talk more with us. That's December 9th. So mark it in your calendars. We will speak to the CEO of Raj Grover back on the podcast. You excited for Vegas? Should be a good week, huh?
I am super pumped to go to Vegas. Was out of town all last week, home yesterday.
Back on a plane.
Monday, tomorrow back on a plane.
Yes. So again, as I said off the top, people, biggest names, the biggest conference that the industry holds, all the people will be there. So Anthony and I will be walking around, asking questions, and we'll provide as much information and intel that we can learn and hear from. Further to what we did in Washington 2 weeks ago. So we'll have a recap of our trip this Friday. No live stream on Wednesday. So we'll be back here Friday morning, 11 a.m. for a recap of what we experienced and saw in Vegas this week. So appreciate everybody being a little bit patient here with some of the scheduling that's gone on the last 2 weeks. But it's a busy time of year right now for the industry when it comes to a lot of these on-location conference events. So
yeah, be good to see everybody. Hopefully get to see Mike.
Yeah, I'll be bringing my mic, so I'll be walking around and hopefully I can get some good names that I can interview while I'm there. So anyway, it's now time, because one of the things that we're going to be doing is going to the ATACH event on Wednesday evening at the Las Vegas Country Club, which is going to be a blast. And that's held by none other than ATACH and their president, Michael Bronstein. With that, let's welcome him in. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Excited to see you in Las Vegas.
I'm so excited. So excited. When do you fly out? Tomorrow morning?
Tonight. I'll be trying to avoid the storm on the East Coast. So I switched my flight around. So right after this, I will see you at the airport.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Is there a winter storm up?
It's threatening. Looming.
That time of year. Well, we had, the storm came by us actually yesterday. There wasn't much. It was windy.
Yeah,
not a lot of snow. Let's bring you in, because on December 12th, there's something big happening. The Supreme Court will meet behind closed doors to decide if they'll take on a major cannabis case. So the outcome, as we know, could reshape 280E, interstate commerce, and the balance between federal prohibition and state legalization. This has garnered some interest. How should people read into this? Is there much here? And if they do take this on, what does this mean?
What an interesting conversation that must be had at the Supreme Court amongst these justices and what they think of state level legalization, and vis-a-vis the ability for state legalization to occur under state level laws, and sort of what that's brought out with the federal government. I mean, it's unbelievable that that level of conversation is going to be happening at the Supreme Court. I think it's important. I think that this case has been important for a while, and it's really like the third leg of the advocacy stool is litigation. We've been involved in a lot of litigation. I've been supportive of being able to deal with this and around these laws. And I think if this case is taken up, and I hope that it is taken up by the Supreme Court, it's going to be a massive moment.
Yeah, of course.
For the industry. It'll be very interesting to hear, how the government continues to justify this stance. And I think that what we've seen from a perspective here is we've obviously seen the liberalization of laws over at the state level, but there are also these federal conflicts that are going on that are completely untenable, and I think really outside the scope of what was intended. We look at the application of 280E. We look at some of the things that have been going on that are really unintended consequences, and the federal government shouldn't really be getting in the way of the state's ability to act here. Yeah. So it's going to be a very interesting case. Obviously,
we should know too, don't they? Won't we know the outcome of whether or not they decide to take on this case like 2 or 3 days afterwards this hearing?
Yeah, I think pretty shortly afterwards. They
usually Michael, with what you just said, though, cannabis is a Schedule I narcotic via the CSA, but the federal government is not really intervening at the state level directly. Obviously, the companies are slaves to 280E. There's general just civil liberties that they aren't able to exercise. But the government, I mean, they're kind of hands off. The feds are kind of hands off compared to what they could be doing technically. So, I mean, if this does go our way, like, what do you think the major ramifications could be for the industry, or what would potentially open up?
They're more than just hands off. I think hands off on the enforcement side is one part of the story. The other part of the story is that the executive branch has already made a determination that cannabis shouldn't be, a portion of the executive branch has made a determination that cannabis is not a Schedule I drug.
Right.
It's common sense at this point.
Well, it's more than common sense, though, right? Common sense has driven the policy, but it's actually arguable, right, that it's now part of policy. Yeah. Okay. And then the other thing that you're seeing is that, like, that's not the only place. Okay. We've seen Congress put in funding riders where basically they say, you're not funding, you're not going to enforce against these state level medical programs. Okay. And Congress is letting its intent be known about what it is that they see around that law. And then even most recently with the definition of hemp, there's a 0.4% THC that can now be added to a product, right? Yeah. So what Schedule I narcotic would ever you allow any amount of into a product of at the federal level? So the movement that we've seen already shows that the interpretation that's happened around the CSA is changing around scheduling, and there have been these moves. So I think that there's a lot for the court to look at here. What can we expect? I mean, the court could say, all right, these state level programs are have legal protection.
We're talking about 280E and as well as interstate commerce is at the forefront, correct?
I think it depends on what their interpretation is, right? But I think that what they're talking about is intrastate. So
intrastate, that's correct.
So I think inside the state is what we're talking about. But how could you apply, how could you apply 280E to that circumstance, given all that's gone on at the federal level?
Right.
Do you think if they do rule in our favor, something like descheduling is a rational step forward versus rescheduling? If the chips do fall our way, or is that just too forward looking based off of this
It's
potential
hard
rule?
it's hard to think that the court is going to legislate like that necessarily, right? Where they say, okay, well, it's descheduled. So the thing
Does
around,
it force hands to legislate within the conversation of descheduling?
it could very well. It could very well force the hand for the government to move, which I think is why it's such an important case. It could also be that that the federal government is waiting out for some of the policy that they're doing, is waiting out litigation too, to see where things go as well. Right. Because some of those types, I don't have, nobody has said to me that is what the federal government is doing. Right. But if there's certain areas of policy that they're looking to roll out, on a regulation or something like that, sometimes those types of things are taken into consideration, as they're thinking about them. States, look, I think, again, from a state perspective, it's another thing where you look at states that haven't legalized yet. And if there is a good ruling that comes back, then it removes this idea that some folks have that are a little bit more conservative in states, saying, that look, it's at conflict with the federal government. I think if the Supreme Court says, hey, states can move the way they want, I think it takes down a whole barrier of things. So, and you're seeing these conservative organizations, and I think that this is really fundamentally good. You're seeing a lot of these conservative organizations file briefs in this case for the court to hear it, because they don't like how they don't like this conflict either, and they're in support of cannabis legalization.
I was surprised to see the Cato Institute file an amicus brief. I was really surprised, and it is surprising to see conservative voices coalescing around this issue.
Yeah, very good point. So if we look at the courts and they weaken federal prohibition to a certain extent, that could really shake things up. So if that is the case, and you talk about 280E and it's less enforceable, what then happens? Does Congress still need to step up and fix this tax issue? What would happen with that? Any idea?
I think that Congress would have to, at some point, step in and create regulation at the federal level.
They would.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because there's no way to if you're operating in, and I think we found this out over the years. So it's all right, are you going to legalize and have no regulation? Right. So deschedule in states, when we've argued this, it has not really happened where states have, and there are a couple examples, but let's talk in generality here, that states mostly will put in a regulatory legalization system of some kind over just decriminalizing, what's going on. They do one and the other. Yeah, they do both, usually at the same time. There had been a lot of arguments in states that it's okay, why don't we just decrim, but not put in regulation? All right. And I actually think that some of the thing that you've seen here in states is that you actually have to have a regulatory system that's put along place on that. I think we're really at a point right now where Congress, we look at what's happened on the hemp synthetic intoxicant side of the equation, right? That became an issue in front of Congress. Yeah. I think Congress now knows what it is that they're talking about. Okay. And I think that federal legalization is closer, not further away. You start getting a court case like this and it's moving, that, the Congress is going to want to create a regulatory system, you know, and they're going to want to act. They don't like when power is taken out of their hands.
So here's a good question.
You know who doesn't like when power is taken out of his hand? The big guy.
The president certainly doesn't like that.
Why do you think the higher courts took this hearing on? We see there's some interesting parts here. We've talked about rescheduling reform. It's been a hot topic for 3+ months. We're seeing different people from Congress that are now stepping up, that are cautiously optimistic. You now have a hearing behind closed doors, which is encouraging. We saw some of the news last week returning to CBD and Medicare and stuff like that. So it looks like there's something going on here, I feel like. But am I reading too much into this?
No, because of issues of large national importance, the Supreme Court, that's usually the types of cases that they take up. Okay, questions of law, and then fundamentally questions of what they're seeing in politics, if it's having an impact on folks. Okay, and we're talking about, north of, we're talking about like 40 different states.
So in terms of questions of law, how black and white do they look at things? Because can they or will they, let's say, take something like the HHS report or the actual science and medical efficacy and data into it? Or do they look at more so in black and white terms as this is the CSA, this is considered a Schedule 1 narcotic, this is what they're asking, and it's very black and white, just legal definitions?
So I'm not a lawyer, but what I would say, like the way the lawyer's answer would be is that they would stick to the Supreme Court would stick along the lines of what the case record that was built up in the lower courts all the way up to it. Mm-hmm. What I would also say here is that, this Supreme Court has definitely made some rulings. Yeah. And they've stepped into some mixes on some issues. On this one, there are a lot of different ways that they could go. Look, they don't have to hear the case either. So right. I think that there's I'm hopeful. I think that there's I'm hopeful in the sense that what we're going to see is the fact that it's risen to this level too. Yeah. I think also elevates the fact that there is a known debate out there from a policy and legal perspective on marijuana legalization. A lot of states have acted on it, and there are portions of the law that are conflicting with federal law, which require interpretation and Supreme Court intervention at this point, because somebody's got to interpret. If Congress is putting these funding riders on, right? If there are all these states that have legalized, if we start moving away, like there's THC is out of Schedule 1, or even just a little bit of it has been descheduled in some way, right? These are all things that conflict where the Supreme Court can weigh in on those things. And I don't think that the industry, I think this is really great what the industry is doing. I don't think we've used the courts enough.
I do too. Yeah. I can't help but think this hemp ban has sped a few things up in more ways than we can imagine right now. But I know that's a separate topic, but it's in different kind of conversation we've been having here for 2-3 weeks now. And I bring all these moving parts in. I don't want to sit here and say it's encouraging, but it just looks like conversations could be being made behind the scenes right now, which we can only hope.
How could you argue? The other thing is you look at what's going on in the States, and I think it's hard to argue that the CSA, it's certainly the marijuana portion of it, applies to states right now with what it is that they've done. You get into a really interesting conversation over it, but
it's, if you want to, that's why I'd asked, because if you take the definition of a Schedule 1 narcotic and then look at the 40 states that have medical and the 21 states that have adult use, it's completely contradictory. If you're looking at it, it is not a Schedule 1 narcotic. If it is, then we are dispensing a Schedule 1 narcotic to millions of Americans on a daily basis. And that should be against the law. But we have made a very clear statement that is clearly not. And it's not a danger to society or something that should be bastardized to the degree that it has been.
So there's something interesting also playing out in the background. You have one justice, you had Clarence Thomas write and say, we should revisit Raich. So the question is a Raich case ripe to revisit too, relative to what the constitutional issues are in there? You see these conservative organizations coming forward saying, right? And Anthony's right here. The more noise that there is, the more talk that there is, the talk is only going to favor us.
Agreed.
Okay. The
Agreed.
more chatter, because you have to be that type of issue to be able to get that type of pressure and that type of action.
There was a report today, the Journal of the American Medical Association. They reported that 1 in 3 chronic pain patients in the U.S. now use cannabis and for chronic pain.
I would I'd love to see the statistic on how many senior citizens, or not even senior citizens, I'd say people over the age of 50 use cannabis for sleep, simply for sleep. Take a gummy and go to sleep.
So there was University of Pittsburgh, 440 patients certified to use medical cannabis and over 8,000 patients prescribed traditional pain meds. And out of that, the study concluded that medical marijuana was comparatively more effective than prescription meds for chronic pain. The odds of responding were 2.6 times higher in the cannabis group, with double the predicted probability of a positive response. Yet here we are in December of 2025, still showing as a classified Schedule I drug with no medical benefits. This is a huge disconnect between Washington and what's going on among the American people. This is wild. Needs to change, but this is why we have these conversations, right?
The octogenarian, reefer madness, institutionalized politicians that are just fully ingrained in changing things. They've been working against us the entire time. Not working against us, but unwilling to listen.
But you know what? I know we cover this and this is what we talk about, but it really doesn't feel like a fringe issue anymore, especially when you saw what's going on in the Senate floor and Congress between, Senator Rand Paul, Senator Mitch McConnell. All that stuff comes into play. And to Anthony Cogniglio's point, it's becoming more and more of a conversation that is hitting the mainstream levels. I saw Fox News even last week talking about Thanksgiving and less people are drinking, and they're talking about
green. They were talking about the green out or something pertaining to Thanksgiving, and people going on the cousin walk before Thanksgiving dinner. Cannabis is mainstream.
Well, it's funny because I think we had a couple years sort of where we weren't getting that level of coverage. It used to be, I remember like in the beginning of this, like every little thing that was going on became like a major like national story, and the interest in the issue was incredible. And then we had a couple of years where I think that a lot of it kind of tailed off. There just wasn't as much talk about it. And now really what we're seeing is real national coverage, real political debate over the issue. And it is sort of this kind of like, society issue right now. And I'm not going to go as far as to say that people are making their minds up about how they're voting on it, but people are talking about it. And that really does matter because then what you have is elected officials who feel like, okay, it's an issue that needs to be solved. Or you have the Supreme Court looking out. The Supreme Court's not immune to reading what's going on. I mean, they probably know. I mean, they're probably sitting around thinking about the same thing too. What it would be to hear these justices talk about the interplay between federal and state law privately with vis-a-vis to marijuana legalization. What a conversation.
I think they'd be pretty honest, and they know that it's a walking contradiction. I think that I don't think you can't make an argument. You can't make a cogent, educated argument on why cannabis is a Schedule I narcotic. It doesn't exist. I don't think you could do it. Like it's just complete nonsense. At this point.
Yep, I agree.
And state and federal law are just completely contradictory.
Yeah. But this is great. I didn't realize it. I know. Just stop. I realized CNBC and Bloomberg were actually recovering it too. So this is all encouraging. But look, I'm sorry, hemp industry. It was only a matter of time before what happened last month. But I just feel like we got some direction and clarity now. And this is actually a good thing for the regulated market, both on the hemp and the cannabis side, since this ban was announced and passed, in my view. And I think a lot of you would probably agree with that as well.
We needed regulatory clarity. Okay. And we can't have people like, the thing is like, you can't have folks selling in sort of a gray market system without regulation. And like, it's like, all right, where are you licensed? Right. What are you doing with this? Look at every other thing, like even alcohol. right? You look at alcohol, it's like, all right, you've got a state, like, you've got licenses to do all these things in different places. Okay. Like what people were arguing was we are licensed, we are regulated under the Farm Bill, whatever that meant. Right. Like that was the regulation. Now what we're going to see is we're going to see real regulation. And this to me is sort of like, okay, like how did you deal with, and there were certain aspects of it, you have the synthetic THC market, which was, for lack of better term, bootlegging, a lot of stuff into the, into the market. And really, like, I think that what the conversation that was pushed forward, I think positively, around the around the hemp issue was, one, what regulation should look like, right? And then two, I also think that who and how these products should be sold to, right? And also potentially even a larger discussion about what the mass market looks like as well, because clearly the demand's there. There's a lot of experiment, and I've said this on the show before. There really was. So when I was growing up, I'll make this analogy. When I was growing up, they hadn't found any exoplanets yet, right? Like they looked around, and when I was young, and this is years and years ago now, right? They're like, we don't know if there are planets around other stars. Okay. When we were talking about cannabis beverages, we were like, are these things going to sell? Are they going to have mass appeal 10 years ago? We didn't know. It's not a form factor that anybody knew about. We were only guessing. We assumed that was the case, but we weren't able to test it, right? Now we know all of these things with the benefit of how we're able to look at it, with the benefit of time, with the benefit of having developed these things sort of in the same way, that we've made discoveries around us in these types of pursuits. And I just think it's going to get better because now more people have experienced that. And there's an idea of what cannabis, of what cannabis could look like for consumers.
It's the clarity thing, to your point. Now that we have some clarity, it's like, okay, now we know where we stand. And guess what? That came from Washington. So let's just keep that momentum going. Because if you can get more of those announcements, suddenly all this stuff that makes common sense finally becomes common sense. And we're on to the next thing.
And also, where can't you get cannabis? Like, I mean, I know, like in these state markets, like we're having conversations. Okay, think about the conversation that we had over the last couple of weeks. Now states are like, oh, we had this. Why don't we just legalize?
Correct.
Like I saw a Republican senator be like, oh yeah, that's what the federal government's doing. And why don't we just legalize, marijuana in our state? Like there was someone in Tennessee who said that. There was another state that said like this, that basically said the same thing, right? People are thinking about it because they, like us, right, who hadn't been paying attention to the issue, now they're starting to think like we are, where they're like, actually, the most logical thing is legalization, right? Where are we going to go?
Yeah. But I think we've been saying it for a long time, but I do think if the plant is rescheduled, 3, 4, 5, descheduled, you will see all these markets drop like dominoes. States will enact adult use programs. They'll be like, it's not the big bad wolf anymore. It's not sitting there next to a bunch of shit that'll kill you. We saw what hemp did. It was effective. Granted, it just got too big for its britches. But we should have legalized, decriminalized cannabis and THC in our state because our citizens want it. Yeah, that is clear and evident.
Yeah, Strawberry Booker, good to see you. I think this is the first time you're on the live stream. If not, apologies. But huge tourism draw, especially internationally, feels different. I agree with everything you're saying. Chris Brady, good to see you. Anything but Schedule 1. I'd like to add to that list. Anything but Schedule 1 or Schedule 2.
Or Schedule 2, yeah. Schedule 2 would suck.
Yes.
There's got to be a better. I mean, the thing is you have people that are arguing. They're like, oh, we want they're living in the past when they're arguing. Okay, this is like what we have to do. Like the stuff that happened around the definition as an industry. What we have to do is we have to say, all right, now we're going to legalize cannabis. Okay, we're going to legalize it. There isn't a shortcut. We're going to get it done. There are more people that want to do it that way. Yeah. All right. And we're not going to have, we're going to make it a market. Like we should also be learning too, that there's certain things that the market and the consumer and politicians are ready for. And there are others that they're not. Yeah. Okay. and you can't really run ahead of that. You've got to bring them with you. If you don't bring folks with you, then you're not going to get what you want.
Yeah. Well, you make a good point, because I never thought about this. The conversations that we're having on the Senate floor and the arguing going back and forth, it definitely brought a lot of attention to other members of Congress. And now that this has taken place, the conversation, I would assume, is being had by others. And to your point, they're looking at this differently now. So another reason to think that feels different, but it feels like some positive direction, because that's what we needed, was direction in all this. So, all right, sir, we won't keep you anymore, but hope you had a good Thanksgiving weekend. How was the family? Everything great?
Everything was good. No, it was good. It was good. There was a lot of turkey.
Your poor Eagles. Your Eagles, man. They
won a Super Bowl last year. I mean, you gotta it's like how angry can I get?
True.
Like, they don't want to play. If I won a Super Bowl, I wouldn't want to play either.
Yeah.
The
Irishman writes, even cannabis, where was that one thing? It helps dogs. And I'm like, yeah, you're right when you think about it.
I mean, CBD there's a lot of I went to go get my dog's dog food at the natural pet store, and the first end cap that you see is all CBD products for dog and cats.
Yeah.
I think that there's got to be. I mean, the problem is that people, like, when you think about regulation, like, these things really do matter to the FDA. Yeah. Okay. Like, it's not just sort of like, okay, you just put stuff out there. We got to be more careful.
Yeah.
I think I think there's a lesson here. I think we got to be careful about what it is that's going on. And we got to do it in a way that, that we certify what it is that we're putting it. We're putting
it just
out
needs
there.
just needs clear regulation. Like, I went into a head shop in Charleston just for the hell of it. When I was there, this place had 8 registers and more products than I've ever seen. They had Stizzy, they had Kiva, they had all of the beverages you could imagine. And then I look in the case, this package had 1,500 milligrams per dose gummies.
Whoa.
And I look at the guy, I'm like, is that like a typo or is that for real? And he's like, yeah, those are real. You want them? I'm like, bro, I'm buying 10 milligram seltzers. Like, I don't want anything to do with that whatsoever. And then I started talking about the hemp ban. They had no idea. Zero idea.
They had no idea.
No idea that any of this was going on.
Wow. Well, let you run. But before you go, good week coming up. Virginia lawmakers set to basically unveil the whole regulated framework of the cannabis market. So all eyes will be on Virginia later this week. So new markets we need online. Don't know what this timeline is going to be, but obviously with Abigail Spanberger and her win last month, looks like things are backing up everything that we have learned from you, from Trent, from Dutchie, that all signs point in the direction that 2026 will be the year for adult use in Virginia, which is great. So
it's going to be a good year.
You can see things. You can just see it. It's close. It's not close enough, but you can really visualize, because the stuff that we learned from you and from the Tyson team last month in PA. And you get some more direction from Washington and how all these new markets could really start to look at things differently. And finally, all this stuff that we've been contemplating and hoping for actually come to fruition, both on the federal level and the state level. So let's see how it goes. But look forward to seeing you in Vegas later this week, and make sure to bring a t-shirt like Anthony's wearing, Cash Money. He looks like he's ready.
Pretty awesome. Yeah, I don't have a Cash Money t-shirt, but I'll be looking to get it. And then obviously I'll have my my zip up jacket hoodie, which actually is way more fashionable than I think people give credit for. I've seen it in person now.
You like it?
Yeah, I do like it.
Well, if you've got
a hoodie bib, it's a hoodie bib.
It is a hoodie bib.
It is. It's fantastic.
If you got, like, there you go, right there.
It's
no
hoodie. Yeah,
it's a hoodie bib.
Yeah, what people don't see is how well made that is. I've seen it in person.
Let's go shop. Ron Burgundy.
Go shopping.
Go get some lasers in Vegas.
Okay? We'll get a Cash Money shirt, and I'll get the
Instagram. I got hit with an ad, and I was like, you know what? I want that, and I just purchased it.
Sewn in hoodie. I can't even get one made.
Yeah.
Well, let's see you in Vegas. Okay. Safe travels.
Safe travels, guys. We'll see you there.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Hope to see you tomorrow, Wednesday.
All right. I am heading to the airport right now too. So again, not here Wednesday, but I'll keep everyone posted. We got some good videos coming out. What do we have planned for tomorrow? I've got the Tilray recap. I've got some good research. Some of that stuff that I read from the American what does it stand for? American Medical Association.
the Journal of American
Something.
Medical Association. Yeah, they're doing a huge push right now on this cannabis hypermesis syndrome. It's everywhere. If you type in cannabis news, it's like the first 12 articles that pulls on Twitter.
I saw that.
About cannabis just causing nausea and just copious amounts of vomiting, which I personally have never known anybody that's gotten it. Curious to see.
I need to read that. I looked at that story and I kind of bypassed it and I went into this one we talked about, but that was encouraging data from the University of Pittsburgh. And again, this is common sense. Like there's Netflix documentaries that shows families, careers being destroyed, people dying. How many people die each day in the US of opioid addiction?
I have no idea.
It's a lot. It is a lot. And the Wiz's point, you've got 44 war veterans that are committing suicide every single day. And I know he's getting a little frustrated with this administration right now to try to get this momentum going for psychedelic medicine. But I really, really hope, especially for people like him and the network that he has, that change happens. Because when you see congressmen that are talking about, reform and putting veterans at the forefront, that hits home to everybody. And that definitely has to change.
Yeah, but we need to see congressmen that talk about veterans that actually get shit done.
I agree.
Like we had language in the CR to expand access to veterans with doctors going from recommending to prescribing cannabis. Yep. And that language was ripped out. No one fought for that language. From what I heard when I reached out to a couple of people, there was deferring language in the House's version and the Senate's version, and they said screw it and just ripped it out. That was important language that would have increased access to veterans via the VA to get these kind of therapies. So until someone starts fighting for that, and I know Representative Mast has been he's been more vocal about cannabis in the last couple of weeks to months. Someone's got to get this stuff done.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, stop talking about it, and definitely don't use the veterans as a pawn in your arguments or to pull on heartstrings to get this stuff done. Because if you're going to bring them up, you better be willing to go to bat for them and willing to get them what they need. Well, not just use it as a talking point. Back
it up by data. There's 100 million Americans that are affected by chronic pain every single year, and it costs $635 billion to the healthcare system. But saying that, that's a big number. Big Pharma is not going away. They want to make that money and be consistent. What do you do in that situation? Because we all know sometimes the nice guys don't finish first. And this is what's at play here. And this goes beyond. You saw alcohol lobbyists step in and get a ban basically passed right away with the influence they had on Mitch McConnell. So Big Pharma, are they watching this space? Yeah, but I don't think to the point where people think they are, because to your point last week with a few of our guests, if they wanted rescheduling to happen, it would have happened already. So it's a lot of money right now that's affecting a lot of the healthcare system. But I don't buy into the
pharma angle suppressing cannabis.
Yeah, I don't either.
I really don't.
We've talked to Don Murphy, who I haven't seen or heard from quite a while. I think he's enjoying a little bit of time off. But
you don't think pharma's got pull at the Americans for Prosperity and the Cato Institute?
Right.
Those are big boys.
I don't think that they're
maybe. I don't think pharma cares about cannabis.
I don't either. So squash that rumor and speculation. All right. That's it for now. And again, everybody, if you get a chance, make sure to scan that QR code and become a daily Baked In newsletter subscriber as well. Just also want to mention too that, hey, look, if you work in this industry and your systems and tools work together, your dispensary is going to run better too. So Dutchie unifies point of sale, e-commerce, loyalty, marketing, and payments all in one connected cannabis operating system. It's trusted right now by over 6,500 dispensaries, empowering more than $22 billion in annual sales. 22 billion. Wow. So Dutchie, they help you simplify operations and deliver a seamless experience no matter how or where your customers shop. If you want to learn more, visit business.dutchie.com. Love those guys. We'll see them out west as well. All right, my friend, I'll let you run off to the airport. I'll see you tomorrow morning in Vegas. In the meantime, everybody, enjoy your week. Back here Friday at 11 a.m. We've got a whole list of scheduled content going out tomorrow morning afternoon. Again, the same thing Wednesday and Thursday. So we'll be busy, and we'll keep you posted on Twitter as well if we see it, hear anything. But more importantly, have a great week, and we'll see you all back here Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time for a weekly recap of our visit in Las Vegas at MJ Biz. AV, good seeing you.
Thanks, everybody.
I'll see you tomorrow. Hey everyone, thanks again for watching here today. Listen, if you're getting value from us here at TDR, make sure to check us out at TDR Plus. It's our exclusive membership community. Why? Well, you'll see CEO interviews that go beyond business, showing a personal side that you won't find anywhere else, including the biggest names in the industry. Plus, you'll get insights from analysts and day traders on where the industry's headed, both short-term and long-term, and a direct chat group with our team. It's only $7 a month, just 25 cents a day, and it helps support everything we do here at TDR. If you want to join, just click the join button below and become a TDR Plus member today. And once again, a big thank you for being part of our community. So that's it for today. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.